trying to find answers about each other, men and women, which he proposes here. And I just found that it's one of my... I think Danny Aiello is at his best in this scene.
To me, this house, these people, this is about life. This is the place where life resides. And I wanted to put as much life as I could in the house. And I noticed in the families, the Italian families that I knew when I was a boy, that the older you got, the higher up in the house you were put. So that the grandfather or the grandmother was always up in the attic. They were always up in the last bedroom at the top of the house. And the kids were always down like in the basement playing. So I always sort of had this idea that in the Italian household that you rose physically, slowly, your whole life up through the house until you finally went to heaven.
Well, I think a lot of it is about the relationship between men and women. And a lot of it is about marriage. When Olympia Dukakis looks at Danny Aiello and says, why does a man need more than one woman? I mean, there's a long pause. And Danny reaches for something, for an answer, and says, well, maybe it's because women have an extra rib. And maybe men are looking for that rib. And then he says, I don't know. There are certain truths coming out here. Now, Shanley always does it through the woman, or he does it often through the woman.
Well, the funny thing about Rose's question is that she knows the answer. And she knows the answer through the entire thing. And she finally just gets Mr. Johnny to sort of assent that this is the answer. And then she thanks him for basically being coached into giving the right answer. And she's satisfied that she understands now the motivation behind her husband's behavior. Because one of the reasons, again, that Cosmo is hanging on to his money, as well as his affair, is he's afraid he's going to die. And she says, the wife says, he thinks if he holds on to his money that he'll never die, but he's going to die. You think you have an affair, you're not going to die, you're going to die. Whatever it is that you think is the solution to the problem of your mortality, forget it. It's not going to work. So, love your wife, give your money away, pay for your daughter's wedding, and get on with it.
Cosmo.
What?
I just want you to know, no matter what you do, you're going to die, just like everybody else.
Thank you, Rose.
So, for Shanley to introduce this whole idea that men perhaps get involved with need more than one woman because they fear death is really quite remarkable. Because maybe it can be true. Maybe it does have an effect on male behavior. I don't know. Maybe it affects all of us. As you know, the way Shanley has the story is Loretta explains to Ronnie early in the film that her first husband was hit by a bus. As a result, there's a lot of buses in throughout the film. That happened more in the editing than it did in the pre-planning. There just happened to be buses, and all of a sudden, in the editing of the film, we became aware. It's one of the best edited films I've worked on because Lou Lombardo, he's just so sensitive, and his timing was so great. I really enjoyed working with him on this film. Looking back on it, oh yeah, I would extend certain moments. Her kicking the can down a street at 6:30 a.m. in Brooklyn Heights, floating, totally in love, with Puccini playing in the background. Hey, I mean, And for me, it's one of the most dramatic moments of the film. I just love it. And I wanted it to be much longer in the film. And if I had it to edit again, I'd give it a little bit more room. She comes in here like Loretta Young. Remember Loretta Young used to come in on her television show? That was my direction at that moment. So she floats through the door. From this point on, we are in a stage play. We are locked in a kitchen, and we're going to bring every single character into this room. And they're all going to sing this wonderful, giant ensemble finale. And the problem, cinematically, of course, is to keep it cooking, to keep it interesting. The writing's tight, the actors are good, but I'll tell you, it was not easy. And the only way it could work for me was I had to stop shooting, bring all of the actors into the scene, and start rehearsing on the set until the rhythms were right. In other words, it had to be rehearsed as a play. This is where we had big problems because it required ensemble acting, and like a fait-du farce, Shanley has to be played with certain tempos. And if the line doesn't come at that moment, and there's a beat too long, it'll all fall apart. That's how fragile this scene is. And we had great problems here in getting everyone to play the film on the same style, on the same comedic style that it's written. In other words, we're getting very close to farce here. We're getting very close to the edge of believability, I believe, in what is happening. Everything's happening at the same time. Everybody's arriving at the right time. Talk about coincidence, gee. So all I'm saying is that to make it believable, it required a certain timing and style of performance that required everybody to listen to everybody else and to each. And this is where Julie Bavasso and we kept having problems. And I remember the whole crew was taken off the set, and not a foot of film was shot. And starting early in the morning, and I think around 12:30 or something, the arguments had started.